What's up guys? Welcome to AnimeKouhai. If you'd like to help me out, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.
They'll likely implement restrictions on how many are distributed.
Despite her usual discretion, Elmesia's openness about the situation was surprising. Even the high-ranking officials present were caught off guard, though their astonishment stemmed more from avoiding the grim reality of the battle. Meanwhile, yet another elite Magus unit had been destroyed. These knights were valued at over 500,000, yet even they couldn't stall Jahil long enough. But Jahil wasn't the only threat. Solario was a formidable presence, but his subordinates, Dollies and Nice, were equally devastating. As undead elves, they wreaked havoc on the Magus forces with extraordinary strength.
That's a massive blow.
Elmesia muttered under her breath, unable to contain her frustration. The survival of the nation mattered far more than wealth. They had to hold out somehow until reinforcements arrived, but under the current circumstances, it seemed nearly impossible. This grim reality left Elmesia feeling the urge to vent her frustration.
I suppose we will have to make do with what we have,
Sylvia said, her expression filled with resignation. Incidentally, the strongest duo in all of Sarian was none other than Sylvia and Elmesia. However, the reason they were standing by instead of fighting was that they had been recalled by the elders.
You must not. Your Majesty, Sylvia-sama, you must proceed with caution.
He is right. Regardless of our chances, we are up against an opponent far beyond our capabilities this time. We absolutely cannot allow this.
Even the elders stepped in to intervene, their concern focused on ensuring the safety of Sylvia and Elmesia. Few people knew that Sylvia secretly served as Elmesia's body double. In fact, not even the 13 royal families were aware of this hidden arrangement. Yet now, with both women present simultaneously, the battlefield descended into further confusion. Even so, Sylvia and Elmesia's strength far surpassed that of the Magus who commanded the Magitech Knights. Thanks to their efforts, they had managed to temporarily stabilize the chaotic situation. All available Magus units had been deployed, doing everything they could to buy time for Sylvia, Elmesia, and other key figures to escape. If the pair rejoined the battlefield, it would render the warriors' sacrifices meaningless. However, both women were resolute.
To be honest, running away by ourselves doesn't sit well with me,
Sylvia remarked.
I agree with Mama. If I flee now, Rimuki will definitely tease me about it later. I'll give it my all too.
Their minds were already made up.
Your Majesty.
One of the elders cried out in desperation. He had once been the minister responsible for sending Laplace, Sarian, into battle long ago, a decision he had regretted ever since. Determined not to repeat the same mistake, he now strove to protect Elmesia with all his might. But Elmesia, wearing the stern demeanor of a ruler, posed a commanding question.
Who am I?
Faced with this, the elder had no choice but to answer.
You are Her Majesty the Emperor.
Then, is there anyone who can stand in my way?
The elder's heart ached as he admitted to himself that using authority in such a moment felt manipulative. But he also recognized that this was simply who Elmesia was. Now that events had reached this point, nothing could deter her.
No, there is not.
He replied, bowing his head in acknowledgement. With the elder's approval given, the remaining opposition melted away. The leaders of the 13 royal families, as the emperor's foremost subordinates, were now duty-bound to fulfill their roles and guide the people according to her will.
Your Majesty.
Elilude-chan, Rimuki will protect Ellen-chan. Please focus on keeping everyone else safe.
I must insist. I will accompany your Majesty.
That would only get in the way. It's true that Elilude-chan is a leader among the Magus, but charging into this fight would just mean throwing his life away.
This objection didn't come from Elmesia but from Sylvia. To Elilude, she might have seemed like a recent acquaintance, but to Sylvia, he was her late husband's younger brother. Even during the times she impersonated Elmesia, they had crossed paths on multiple occasions. This familiarity made her rejection of his offer all the more cold and firm. Elise Grimwald, Elmesia's grandmother and Elilude's mother, nodded in agreement with Sylvia's assessment. As the head of the 13 royal families, she issued a direct order to Elilude, the Archduke.
Stand down, Elilude. Heed the guidance of the other kings.
Though usually calm and measured, she spoke with a commanding voice brimming with authority.
Set aside your selfishness and follow Her Majesty's orders.
Her words carried immense weight. Regardless of their private thoughts, the other kings couldn't help but nod in agreement.
But Mother.
Elilude attempted to object, only to be silenced by Elise's piercing gaze. It was the first time he had ever seen his mother genuinely angry. One of the kings took it upon himself to reprimand Elilude.
If Elise Sama had not intervened, you would have already been detained.
An elder member of the royal family, who had long since passed his throne to his sons, patted Elalud on the shoulder, speaking to him in a calm tone.
Let it go. Since your brother, that scoundrel Syrian, disappeared, Sylvia has been living in isolation. It's no wonder you don't understand how terrifying she can be. But, let me tell you, she is even more frightening than Her Majesty. Exactly. Even if we all banded together, we would not stand a chance against her. Best to follow orders and retreat while we still can.
It was an unwritten rule in Syrian never to speak as though Syrian were truly gone. Avoiding such words came naturally, as no one dared risk provoking Sylvia's wrath. The kings lamented their own inability to act. Once more, their survival rested entirely on Sylvia and Elmesia. But as subjects, their duty was to obey the emperor's will, no matter how frustrating it felt. Watching their elders comply, even the younger kings came to the same realization: resistance was futile. At the same time, they were struck by the unity of Syrian's leadership. Generations of parents and grandparents, who were usually at odds, now engaged in amicable conversation. It was the first time the younger generation had witnessed such harmony, and it was evident that this cohesion stemmed from the charisma of Sylvia and Elmesia. Sylvia, a master of the spear, wielded the Vajra with the power of her ultimate skill, Thunder King Indra, the pinnacle of weather-based abilities. Her daughter, Elmesia El Rusarian, bore a strikingly different persona from her role as emperor of the sorcerers' dynasty of Syrian. She had awakened to the ultimate skill, Heavenly Wind King Veu, another supreme weather ability that seemed to be an offshoot of Sylvia's power. A prodigy in combat, Elmesia skillfully wielded a mythical-grade chakram, slicing her foes apart with ease. Though her abilities fell short of Sylvia's, the gap was not significant. Once more, with the hopes of their people resting on their shoulders, the two returned to the battlefield. Their courageous actions opened a path forward. Heaven favors those who take action. Thanks to their bravery, hope would endure, paving the way to a better future. Benimaru, Soy, Leon, Kigali, and Tyr arrived in Syrian shortly after Sylvia and her team had re-engaged in battle. Their presence was first detected on the images from the control room after Sylvia's second sortie, suggesting they were already fatigued. Those who had been injured were receiving treatment on the massive leaves of the sacred tree. Meanwhile, Sylvia and Elmesia were locked in combat with Jahil and Zalario, respectively. The sacred tree's defense mechanisms were still operational, the only thing keeping everyone alive.
As expected from Rimuki. You really sent us reinforcements just as I thought all hope was lost.
Elmesia greeted Benimaru and the others with a hint of emotion in her voice.
Rimuru-sama always honors his promises.
Benimaru offered a confident smile and nodded, his gaze fixed on Zalario and Jahil. Leon swiftly moved to confront Zalario, taking over from Elmesia. The flame pillar he held radiated an intense aura of power. Unbeknownst to Zalario, Soy had already positioned himself for a sneak attack. Everyone was engaged in aerial combat around the sacred tree, so it was no surprise to find Soy floating above, hidden in the sky. Despite the numbers advantage of Leon and Soy against Zalario, the disparity in strength was clear. But Soy had no qualms about the situation, fairness was irrelevant. He was fully prepared to launch a surprise strike without hesitation. Meanwhile, Jahil was facing his own troubles.
I won't forgive you.
Kigali declared as she floated beside Sylvia. For warriors of their caliber, creating footholds in midair was as effortless as standing on solid ground. Sylvia, observing their arrival, thought to herself,
It looks like they aren't here to replace me.
she was still capable of fighting, and their support was appreciated.
How insolent!
Jahil growled through clenched teeth, his frustration evident. Tyr fixed a sharp, challenging glare on him as the three fighters surrounded him, preparing for a 3-on-1 showdown. Benimaru, observing the battlefield from above, assessed the situation. Except for Jahil and Zalario, the Magus forces were proving themselves as the strongest fighters in the skirmish. Having recovered their momentum, they were beginning to push back the phantom troops.
If we can take down Jahil and the others, victory will be ours.
Even though he knew it wouldn't be an easy task, Benimaru's face held a confident, fearless smile as he studied the unfolding battle. Leon, meanwhile, stood face to face with Zalario. Though his expression was as stoic as ever, his mood was foul. Leon was often misunderstood, his lack of conversational skill and inability to express himself often led to resentment, even when his actions were well-intentioned. Among the few who truly understood him were Sylvia, his mentor, and Elmesia, an ally he trusted. Seeing both of them tormented to this extent was enough to make Leon seethe with anger. Naturally, Chloe held the top spot as his greatest grievance, but this situation ranked a close second. Beyond that, Leon was also furious with himself. He couldn't stand the thought of being manipulated by the enemy or burdening Sylvia with additional trouble. Leon had wanted to deal with Michael, the source of the chaos, himself. However, Rimuru had already stepped in, leaving Leon feeling indebted to Sylvia for her efforts on his behalf. If he didn't repay that debt here and now, he would never be able to face her again. While Sylvia's presence alone was formidable, Leon knew this wasn't just her problem anymore. Velzard's motives were unclear, but it was evident she was heading their way while battling Milam. If the fallout from that fight reached this area, it could be reduced to nothing. And Leon doubted the destruction would stop there. From Syrian, heading north would lead to the flourishing western nations. To the west lay the Desert of Death and the Holy Void Damerganya, while further southwest was El Dorado, Leon's own territory. Though Velzard's true objective was uncertain, one of these locations was bound to be her target. Dealing with Velzard alone was possible, regardless of her intentions. However, with Milam rampaging alongside her, interference would be far riskier. Was this chaos Velzard's plan, or was it part of Feldway's larger strategy?
It doesn't matter, we just have to stop them.
This was the decision Leon had come to. He believed in acting decisively, even against potential threats. While it was up to Rimuru and his allies to handle Velzard and Milam, Syrian was clearly a critical defensive position. The fact that it was under attack proved its importance. Eliminating the enemy generals before Milam and the others arrived was crucial. Only then could they focus entirely on curbing Milam's rampage.
A big thanks to the AnimeKouhai patrons who made this video possible. Jared Bressler, Havox, Speed Saber, Curtis Loban, Judah Herrera, Just a Guy, Miss L.W. Hernandez, Jason Martin, Zach Rosen, Jerry Sladek, Ray Perez, Jay, Donald Williams, Day of Light, John M, Godman Gaming, Markithian Tidwell, Adrian, Kumo, T. Bush, JV, Thomas, Christ, Joshua Cousins, Jose Hernandez, Khalid, Christian Deshazer, Divine C. Harris, Montyboy98, Ruben, Yuki Iki, Gray, Isaac, Koala King 93, Quilly Buckner, Alver, Darius King, Normal Defate, Vicente Baharias, Joshua Andrade, L, Gary Miles, Dragon Spawn 666, J. Rule, Nate, Leiron Sangkap, Lucas Guet, Jason Martin, Christopher Mash, Charles Bailey, Sky T, Diego Ginoza, Andre Hamilton, Martin Ramos, Guy Ensley, Simon Rode, Emperor WSA, Miko Espinosa, Gobi Lin, Pratik Bandari, Faiz Mansour, Jackson Early, Smexy, Carl Stephen Bernadal, Gareth Hashimoto, Steven Madison, Vasto Lord, Marl Barsha, Ralph Ignacio, Efrain Hernandez, William Locke, Kamal Luke, Jahid Hassan Lipu, Spencer Candila, Ian Sikibiol, Thanacorn Lee Sawat, KACP9R, The Harv, Drayden Yamauchi, Alex Buthanu, Michael Brinkley, Nathan Alexander, Mario Kanoy, Karam Faraj. Thank you so much for helping out. I'll see you guys in the next video.